Hello friends, welcome to Dungeons & Dragonfly, where I adapt various characters for use in D&D. I'm Dragonfly9078, and today I'm building Cars from JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. So what do we want from this build? Well, Cars is a Pillar Man, a sort of pseudo-mega ancient vampire that's barely elaborated on, which gives him certain powers. There's the general vampire suite of being generally better than normal humans at most things. Then there's the weird stuff, like being able to morph his body in weird ways and dissolve people with a touch. Most of the Pillar Men we see also have a signature elemental fighting style, and Kars's involves sprouting flashing swords from his limbs. But really, the bulk of what we're looking for is the various abilities he gets once he becomes the ultimate life form. Among other things, he can shapeshift freely, regenerate from pretty much anything, and even get souped up Hamon. Looking over at ability scores, I'll be using the standard point array, and we actually don't have any multiclassing minimums today. Starting off with a 10 in strength. Kars is inhumanly strong, but we need other stuff more, and this is the easiest to compensate for with other features and skills. Dexterity is 12, he can cut through bullets with his sword arms, and Constitution is 14 since he can take almost any amount of damage and get right back up. Kars is a super genius with great perception, so we'll put our 13 in intelligence and our 15 in wisdom. But he's also dismissive of non-pillar men, and is casually cruel, so we'll dump charisma. Pillar men are sort of like vampires, and so are Dampier. We get +2 to our dex and +1 to our whiz, 60 feet of dark vision, and proficiency in acrobatics and deception. Our deathless nature means we don't need to breathe, and we get a climbing speed equal to our 35-foot walking speed. Then starting at 3rd level, we can just straight up stick to walls, so we can walk across walls and ceilings while leaving our hands free. Dampier also get a Vampiric Bite, an attack that uses our Constitution, deals 1d4 piercing damage, and has advantage if the target is below half health. A number of times per day equal to our proficiency. If we hit a creature that isn't a construct or undead, we can use our Bite to empower ourselves, either healing equal to the piercing damage we dealt, or adding the amount of piercing damage we dealt as a bonus to our next ability check or attack roll. None of the backgrounds are super great fits, so we'll go with the Gruul Anarch. It fits well enough flavor-wise, though really Kars feels more like one of the old gods the Gruul would worship rather than a member, and animal handling and athletics are both skills that we want. Plus there's a spell on the Gruul list that I'd like to pick up later, so that's a bonus. Kars is an immortal shapeshifter with a great respect for nature and the DNA of every animal on Earth inside of him, so really Druid is the only way to go. We get 2 skills, like nature and perception, and we learn Druidic, the ancient Pillar Man language. For spells, we're the Pillar Man leader, so guidance boosts our underling skill checks by a d4, and primal savagery will serve as our dissolving touch. We make a melee spell attack, dealing up to 4d10 acid damage on a hit. Jump and Long Strider emphasize our physical superiority to humans. We can use Cure Wounds to regenerate from an injury, and Absorb Elements lets us shapeshift some adaptation that gives us resistance to an energy type if it hits us, halving the damage and adding a d6 of that energy to our next melee attack. At 2nd level, we'll join the Circle of the Moon to be especially good at shapeshifting. With Combat Wild Shape, we can Wild Shape as a bonus action, and burn spell slots while transformed to heal for 1d8 per level of the slot. Moon Druids also get a wider range of choices of animal to turn into. Kars can turn into literally any animal on Earth, so having that expanded list is necessary. At the moment, we can turn into any beast up to CR1, though not into anything with a swimming or flying speed. If we want to cut off a limb and turn that into an animal instead of turning into one entirely, there's Wild Companion, which lets us burn the use of our Wild Shape to cast Find Familiar, though the Familiar only sticks around for a number of hours up to half of our Druid level, and we do only get 2 uses of Wild Shape per rest, so it might not be worth it. Alternatively, we can cast Summon Beast, which summons a small spirit creature to do our bidding. We can choose between air, land, and sea, and the spirit we summon takes the form of an appropriate animal. Enhance ability boosts both our mental and physical abilities by giving us advantage on ability checks using the stat of our choice. If we pick strength, our carrying capacity also doubles. Dexterity lets us subtract 20 feet from any falls we take when looking at fall damage, and Constitution gives us 2d6 temporary HP. There's also Bark Skin, to shift our skin into a shell to make our AC 16 at minimum, and we can use Flame Blade as our sword arms. We summon a flaming scimitar that lasts up to 10 minutes with our concentration. As an action, we can make a melee spell attack with it, dealing 3d6 fire damage on a hit. I know fire is more AC/DC's thing, and Kars's is light, but it's not like he actually does radiant damage until he can use Hamon, so it's fine. With our first ASI, we'll grab Skill Expert. That'll bump our con to 15, give us proficiency in insight, and make us the Aztec god of fitness with expertise in athletics. At this level, we can use our Wild Shape to turn into creatures with a swimming speed, and we'll take Infestation as our cantrip. We create bugs to harass the target, dealing up to 4d6 poison damage on a failed Constitution save, as well as making them move 5 feet in a random direction. For 3rd level spells, Protection from Energy is similar to Absorb Elements in that it shifts us to a form that resists a type of elemental damage of our choice, but it lasts for up to an hour instead of just for one attack. Might help if we take a dip in some lava. Aura Vitality gives us a 30-foot radius healing aura. As a bonus action, we can heal a creature in the aura for 2d6 HP. We can choose ourselves, of course, so really we can just regenerate health as a bonus action every turn without using multiple spell slots. The Gruul spell list brings us Conjure Barrage, so we can shoot a rain of scales in a 60-foot cone, dealing 3d8 damage on a failed dex save. Then Conjure Animals can turn those scales into Quippers or some other animal. We can summon 1 CR2 beast, 2 CR1 beasts, 4 CR1 half beasts, or 8 CR1 quarter beasts. 6th level is all about our wild shapes. Starting at this level, our attacks in animal form count as magical for overcoming resistances and immunities, and we have a wider pool of animal forms. The max CR of our wild shapes increases from 1 to a third of our druid level, so up to CR2 at the moment. Blight lets us drain a creature of life and water, dealing 8d8 necrotic damage on a failed constitution save. If we target a magical plant or a plant creature, they have disadvantage on the save and take max damage instead of rolling. And if we target a regular plant, it doesn't even make the save, it just dies. Just like Bark Skin, Stone Skin uses our shapeshifting to harden our body, giving us resistance to non-magical bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing damage. And Guardian of Nature shifts us to have more animalistic features. We can either get an extra 10 feet of movement, 120 feet of dark vision, advantage on strength-based attack rolls, and an extra 1d6 force damage to all of our melee weapon attacks, or we can get 10 temporary HP, advantage on constitution saves, and attacks that use dexterity or wisdom, and the ability to make the ground within 15 feet of us difficult terrain for our enemies. Speaking of constitution saves, we'll get proficiency with them by picking up Resilient at level 8, rounding off our constitution to 16. We can also wild shape into creatures that can fly at this point. At 9th level, we can turn into creatures that are CR3 or lower, and we can summon a full insect plague. We create a 20-foot radius sphere of insects. The whole area is lightly obscured and counts as difficult terrain, and any creatures in the area when it forms, or who enter or end their turn there, have to make a constitution save or take 4d10 piercing damage. 10th level Moon Druids get Elemental Wild Shape. Instead of turning into an animal, we can spend 2 uses of our wild shape to turn into either a water, earth, fire, or air elemental. We'll also take Gust for our cantrip here, for the air nozzle thing that Cars tries to use to get back to Earth. It can only push us 5 feet in a round though, and escape velocity is much higher than that, so it probably won't do much good. For 6th level spells, Heal is some souped up regeneration that restores 70 HP, and cures any diseases, blindness, or deafness we're suffering from. Then Conjure Fey creates a Fey creature or beast that's CR6 or lower to fight for us. Primordial Ward gives us resistance to acid, cold, fire, lightning, and thunder damage, and we can use our reaction when we're hit by one of those to end the spell and gain immunity to one of those types until the end of our next turn. Should come in handy when we get dumped in a volcano. We also get our first taste of Hamon with Sunbeam, which lets us create a ball of sunlight in our hand and fire a beam from it every turn, dealing 68 radiant damage and blinding any creatures in the beam who fail a constitution save. 12th level brings us CR4 wild shapes, as well as the Keen Mind feat. That bumps our intelligence to 14, lets us remember anything we've seen or heard in the past month, and lets us always know where north is, as well as how long it is until the next sunrise or sunset. Cars is a genius, but we need other things more than intelligence, so this and capping wisdom will have to suffice for that. With 7th level spells, we can actually regenerate with Regenerate. We heal 4d8 plus 15 HP, then heal 1 HP every turn for the next hour. And Draconic Transformation gives us 30 feet of blind sight, wings and a 60-foot flying speed, and a breath weapon. A 60-foot cone of energy that deals 6d8 damage on a failed dex save that we can throw out every turn as a bonus action. 14th level Moon Druids can cast Alter Self at will without a spell slot. We can freely change our appearance, including into other races. We can grow gills and fins and such to give ourselves swimming speed. And we can sprout any kind of natural weapons that we want. They count as magic weapons, have a +1 bonus, and deal 1d6 damage. Technically, Kars' sword arms are a natural weapon to him, so we can grow them at will if we don't want to spend a spell slot on the Flame Blade. 15th level gives us CR5 wild shapes and more Hamon with Sunburst. We set off a brilliant explosion in a 60-foot radius, dealing 12d6 damage to creatures who fail a constitution save, as well as blinding them for a minute. We'll bump our wisdom to 18, then pick up Shape Change. This is kind of like the ultimate wild shape. We can turn into any creature we've seen that isn't a construct or undead, with CR equal to our level or lower. We stay transformed for up to an hour with our concentration, and we can use our action to turn into a different creature. At 18th level, we can turn into wild shapes up to CR6, and we can keep casting spells while wild shaped with beast spells. That lets us perform any somatic or verbal components of our spells while in beast form, though we can't provide material components. There's also Timeless Body. For every 10 years that pass, we only age 1 year, greatly lengthening our lifespan. Our last ASI will cap off our wisdom, then our capstone is the 20th level of Druid for Archdruid. We can completely ignore the verbal and somatic components of our spells, along with any material components that don't have a cast, and aren't consumed by the spell. And that applies both in normal form and beast form. Of course, the real prize is that we can wild shape an unlimited number of times, so we can shapeshift freely as much as we want. Now that the build is complete, let's take a look and see what we have done. Well, we are stupidly hard to kill. On top of the host of healing abilities and spells we have, Archdruid is ridiculous, since we can wild shape as a bonus action every turn to get a whole new health pool enemies have to chew through to even touch our own HP. Plus, we can just shape change into an ancient white dragon if we really want to. At will shapeshifting is also exactly as versatile as it sounds. We can turn into any creature for any situation or any terrain, and still retain pretty much our full spellcasting capabilities. The only spells we have with components that Archdruid doesn't just flat out ignore are Summon Beast, Draconic Transformation, Shape Change, and Stone Skin. Everything else is fair game, and we can always just drop Wild Shape and cast one of those if we really want to. As for weaknesses, we don't have many, but the most glaring is our low Charisma. When we Wild Shape or Shape Change, we get the creature's physical stats, so our low strength isn't really an issue, but we keep our mental stats, so our charisma is. That leaves us vulnerable to getting yeeted right out of the world by a banishment or a plane shift, which, true to form, is basically how Joseph beat Cars in the first place.
くだらんな。1対1の決闘なんてな。このカードの目的はあくまでも石石、あくまでも究極生物になること。ワムーのような戦士になるつもりもなければロマンチストでもない。どんな手を使おうが最終的に勝てばよかろうなのだ。
Thank you for watching, friends. I hope you enjoyed the build. No poll this week, but if you have any feedback or suggestions for characters you'd like to see me build, please leave them in the comments below and they could show up in a future poll. Leave a like or subscribe if you want to see more. Thanks again for watching. I will see y'all later.